Good morning, everyone. My name's Christine Chiswick and I'm Chair of Exmouth and District U3A. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Jared Rapson from Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service based in Exmouth. And this morning he's going to talk about fire safety for us in the home, a really important topic. But before Jared starts, on behalf of Exmouth and District U3A, I'd like to thank you and all your firefighters because you're a very, very essential service for all of us. And I'd like to thank you for all that training that you do, and especially keeping fit, because I know that you have to have an annual review to make sure that you're still fit enough to carry on as firefighters. And that really is quite something. So if we could all unmute and just welcome Gerard and also give him a big round of applause for all our firefighters in Exmouth.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for inviting me and for tuning in into this. Basically, just as kind of an introduction to this. What we normally do is we go around into Exmouth and we conduct doorstep home fire safety visits. Originally, this was done on a referral basis. John's already mentioned about our website where there's a phone number on. If people are interested, they can phone up and they can book in a home fire safety visit. So it was quite an ad hoc kind of basis, and now we've each been kind of assigned areas and roads within Exmouth. So we're trying to cover every road in Exmouth and speak to everyone that we can. I'm sure you appreciate it takes quite a long time to to do that. So what we're trying to do is have kind of a more targeted approach and speak to people who kind of it would be most beneficial for. Ideally people with maybe who'd be a high risk of fires occurring, or who might have issues to do with mobility, or who might need more assistance to get out of the property if there was an emergency. Yes, so I think it's really great that I've been invited here to speak to you all. Hopefully we can pass on some useful fire safety information that will be useful to you. So what I was planning on doing was just going through our normal fire safety messages. I'm going to cover what the main fire risks are in the home, how to reduce those, how to formulate an escape plan, things like that. Then if there are any questions or kind of issues that that anyone would like to raise and anything like that, then that's fine. And then then we'll go from there really. Would that be all right? Is that okay? Good. Okay, that's a thumbs up. I've already been introduced here, but my name's Jared Rapson. I'm a firefighter here at Exmouth Fire Station up on Salterton Road. A bit of background for myself. So I've only been at Exmouth for a year. Previous to that, I worked in the West Midlands at a station called Ward End Fire Station in Birmingham, where I was since 2014. It's some thumbs up for Birmingham there. Previous to that, I live in Halberton, which is near Tiverton. So I used to be an on-call firefighter for Tiverton Fire Station, where I joined in 2010. So all in all, I've been in the fire service for going on about 11, 12 years, basically. Our primary role obviously is to respond to emergencies, but as the roles kind of developed, we do more and more prevention work and protection work with businesses and stuff like that. So hence why I'm here today, basically. So if I get straight into it then. So one of the main things that when we go around to people's homes is we ask them to identify what some of the main fire risks in the home might be. I don't know if it might be worth perhaps people wanting to contribute their thoughts on that, or if it might be a bit too chaotic with the everyone going off mute or anything like that, or I'll leave it up to yourselves.
How do you feel about that, everyone? If you want to sort of contribute as you go along, thank you for that invitation, Jared. Just unmute. The alternative, if you prefer, is just to type something in the chat box. So I'll leave it to you to do it. But at the moment, we're hanging on your every word, Jared.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think one of the dangers is taking the batteries out of the fire alarms, actually.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's yeah, it's something we come across either if they go off when they shouldn't be going off, people take the batteries out or they take them down from the ceiling completely. Sometimes they've been put in the wrong place, which then in turn leads them to go off when they shouldn't be. Hopefully most of your members already have smoke alarms. If not, at the end we can discuss how we go about arranging a visit and coming around to install them. So these are the smoke alarms that we supply free of charge in the fire service. It's a company called Fire Angel that makes them. And some of your members might have ones like these already. If they do, they're quite a straightforward thing. They've got a test button in the middle. So we recommend pressing the test button and testing them once a week, ideally. So the idea is that they're placed so they protect your escape routes. So we recommend having them one on each floor of a property, ideally top and bottom of the stairs. If you live in a bungalow, then just the hallway area. So that if there was a fire, if a fire were to occur in the property, the escape routes would kind of be protected a little bit by the smoke alarms, giving you more time to get out the property safely. That's the idea. Speaking about the batteries for smoke alarms, so the ones that we install, they've got a built-in 10-year battery. So there's no, you can't kind of take the battery out and mess about with anything like that really. So they're quite a good they're quite a good alarm. If we do install them, there's an expiry date on the back. As I say, it should be a 10-year built-in battery. Yeah, so quite often what we see sometimes as well is people have them up in their kitchens or very close to their kitchens. So then they go off when people kind of burn the cooking or burn toast or something like that. And then, as you say, they'll take the batteries out, they'll take them down. So that's another reason why we have them in hallways and top and bottom of the stairs to avoid that issue of them going off unnecessarily. Sometimes if they're too close to a bathroom, they can go off with the steam from a shower. So again, not ideal to have them near there. If you're wondering why that happens and why they go off when they shouldn't or they go off via steam, so what they call is an optical smoke alarm, and it's just got two kind of infrared lights, and if anything passes between them, then that'll set the smoke alarm off. So whether that be steam or smoke, or quite commonly as well, spiders or little insects, spider webs. That's quite a common one that we go around to. We'll alarms are going off at a property, we'll take it down, give it a blow, and like a spider will come out of there. So it's something that happens quite regularly. So that's why it's important to test them once a week. And also, if you can build it into your routine of maybe just giving it a hoover, like when you're whizzing the hoover around the house, just put hoover the little opening there, and that'll prevent going off unnecessarily, hopefully, basically. So yeah, good. Yeah, so covered smoke alarms a little bit there. So the other fire risks in the property that are kind of most likely to cause fires, a big one is cooking. So it's a very common one. We go to an Exmouth where people have simply just started cooking, gone to do something else, perhaps answered the phone or something, or just forgotten that it's on. We've got lots of burnt food in pans on the stove. So our advice would be, if you're cooking, to never leave it unattended. If you do have to maybe answer the door or answer the phone, just turn the cooker off, maybe put it on a different burner, a different hob, do what you need to do, come back and put it back on again. The kind of same goes with well, not so much with ovens, but we do come across people who've left things in the oven for hours and they've forgotten about it. So ideally, just be mindful of cooking and leaving it unattended, really. If any of you, it's less and less common now, but if any of you do cook in like deep oil, so like a chip pan or a deep fat fryer, that can be another cause for concern with fires starting. Our advice with that is, if you can get maybe an electric deep fat fryer, they're much safer. Or if you just use deep oil in a pan, we say to only fill it a third of the way, so that it's not kind of brimming with oil. Then oil kind of spits out, it catches a light, and then it starts a chip pan fire. We do have a chip pan fire demonstration trailer that you may have seen if you've attended any of our open days or things like this. But it's quite impressive. It's quite a spectacle, because we've got a burning chip pan that's alight, and then there's a little cup of water, and it's very little. It's only a few drops of water, and then using a mechanism we can tip the water onto the chip pan fire, and it's not exactly an explosion, but it looks like an explosion basically. Obviously, you're aware that oil and water don't mix. So what happens is the water goes to the bottom of the pan, rapidly expands, and it just pushes all the oil out at a very, high speed basically. And you can imagine the kind of devastating impacts of that, really, especially if you're standing right next to it or something like that. So again, so our advice is if you're cooking with oil and the oil catches fire, never to put water on it. If it's safe to do so, just turn the power off to the cooker, so turn the hob off, or however your cooker works. If you can close the door to the kitchen, get everyone out of the property, call us out on 999, and we'll come and deal with it safely, because it's not worth putting yourself at risk, basically. There is kind of other steps to do, but I wouldn't really advise doing these, because it might put the fire out sooner, but it might be putting yourselves at more risk, which may be unnecessary. But if you're cooking it with a big pot and you've got the lid to hand, if you can safely put the lid back on the pot, which would kind of suffocate the fire. Again, but you need to be aware of kind of burning your hand and things like this. If people do have fire blankets in their kitchen as well, you can use this to just wrap over a pot or a pan that's on fire. But again, my advice would be, if it's safe to do so, turn the power off to the cooker, close the kitchen door, and phone us out on 999. That would be the safest thing to do. All right, with that. Yeah, so that's cooking mainly. Another kind of big risk of fire on the property is electrics. So a couple of different things here. One thing that can cause electric fires is having too many things plugged into the same sockets, which then overheats the plug sockets. What we see a lot as well is, if you know what I mean by plug socket adapters, and there's different types of these. So you can get the long strip adapters that have maybe kind of 4 plugs in a series, which those are fine, basically. We recommend using those. Those are fine, as long as you don't have too many things plugged in that use a lot of electricity and could overheat. The ones that we don't like are the cube adapters. So they're in like a box. Reason for this is that they don't distribute the heat very well. So all that heat from all the different plugs is basically in the same spot, and that can overheat quite easily and start an electrical fire. So if you do have any of those cube ones, go out and buy yourself just the long strip adapters. They're very cheap, and they're much safer. That's our advice with that. Something else you can do to reduce electrical fires occurring is simply just to turn things off of the plug when you're not using them, especially overnight as well. Just anything that doesn't need to be turned on. So especially the TV, perhaps if there's anything in the kitchen, the toaster, the microwave that doesn't need to be on. Of course, leave your fridge, freezer on, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, just anything really. We also don't really advise charging things overnight, including phones, laptops, that kind of thing, because they can also overheat. Especially some people, they'll have their phone on charge, maybe it'll be underneath the pillow, and the lithium-ion batteries in the phones do heat up quite easily, and we have attended fires caused by that as well. I don't know if any of your members use e-cigarettes as well, but that's another kind of reason that we can that can cause a fire as well. People using them while they're being plugged in. If that's relevant to any of your members, we can talk about that in more detail, but I don't think that'll be an issue. Yes, so that's another big cause, really. I don't know, more of an obvious one, really, but I don't know if any of your members have open fireplaces or log burners in their homes. If so, then it's important to kind of keep an eye on that as well. If it's an open fireplace, it's a good idea to have a fire surround, just so if you do have some logs or anything like that and they roll out, then hopefully they won't roll as far as reaching a carpet and setting that on fire. Same with a log burner. If you've got a log burner and the door is open, perhaps logs can roll out there. So just either keep the door closed or get a fire surround. Then the other issue, of course, with open fireplaces and log burners is the chimney itself, the flue. So we recommend getting that kind of serviced and swept at least once a year, ideally twice a year. But it can be a hassle and potentially a bit expensive, but once a year is a minimum. Obviously not this time of year, but you know, going into the winter, we do go to quite a lot of chimney fires. If you don't really know what these are, basically when the when you light a fire in the chimney, most of the wood or whatever you're burning is used up as heat and you know and smoke that goes to the chimney, but some of it isn't, and it becomes it builds up as almost like a tar substance in the chimney. So then what happens is kind of embers will kind of sit on these, or they'll catch light themselves, and there'll be a fire burning in the chimney place. It's quite hard to get to, but we've got specialist equipment that we can deal with a chimney fire from either underneath, coming from the fireplace, or on top, coming from the flue, from the stack on the roof, and we can deal with it like that. But yeah, getting it swept and serviced once a year does cut down on that risk significantly. So that's a good thing to do as well. Yeah, I've kind of gone into how to reduce them as well, how to reduce risks. Yeah, is everyone happy with that? Are there any kind of, is now a good point to maybe take a moment to discuss any kind of issues or concerns that people might have with what I've already talked about there?
I think there's something called an air fryer these days that's popular, isn't there?
Yes.
What's that in terms of risk?
I'll be honest, I don't know too much about them. As you said, they are relatively new, but my understanding is that they are much safer than they're cooking with oil, because you don't have that risk of the burning liquid and everything. The only thing would be an electrical risk, really, and perhaps I've never used one, but I imagine if there's settings for how long you leave them frying, perhaps if that's not you know, if that's put on for too long and then forgotten about, maybe it could burn and you know, get worse from there. But yeah, my understanding is that they're much safer than deep fat fryer. That's a good question, actually. Yeah.
While we're talking about kitchens, I was really interested in what you said about fire blankets. I remember in my last home, the advice was actually to have a fire blanket in the kitchen, and my wife and I were really frightened about using it if we had to use it, because there is a certain technique, isn't there, of being able to suddenly move fast and put it in the right place. I'm just wondering what your advice is, and it was really useful what you said earlier, Jared, but what your advice is about having either or both fire extinguishers and fire blankets. Is it helpful to have those domestically available?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So yeah, as you say, with fire blankets, there certainly is a technique, because you know, if you're you know, coming into contact with the fire, of course, you're putting yourself at risk. But the technique would be to grab the corners of it, wrap it around your hands, so your hands and your forearms are completely covered. Use it to kind of to shield any skin that's exposed, and then you can move towards the fire and essentially wrap it around whatever's on fire to suffocate it, deprive it of oxygen, which will extinguish it. With extinguishers as well, yeah, by all means, you know, you can buy them fairly cheaply online. Do look into, if you do want to purchase one, do look into the types, because there's different classes of fire extinguisher which deal with different classes of fire. So you can get water extinguishers, you can get carbon dioxide, you can have foam, dry powder. So yeah, just kind of, if you identify kind of the risks in the home and match the fire extinguisher with it. However, our advice wouldn't be to, you know, definitely go out and buy yourself a fire extinguisher and, you know, use it, you know, as much as possible, because you would be putting yourself at more of a risk. So that would completely be down to yourself to, and it would be more to save property than anything, really. So if there's a very small fire in the property, and you worry about it spreading, and you feel safe and confident to use a fire extinguisher to quickly put that out, it would still be a good idea. If that's the case, it would still be a good idea to phone us out. So, you know, obviously we've got thermal imaging cameras and bits of equipment, so we can make sure, and gas detectors, we can make sure the fire's definitely out and there's no toxic fumes in the home still. However, our advice would be, if there is a fire in the property, if it's safe to do so, to close the internal door to whichever room the fire is in. Make sure everyone in the house is aware that there's a fire. Get everyone out of the property, not go back in for anything, any personal possessions. call us out on 999 and we can come and respond safely. As you say, we are quite well situated in Exmouth, and we can get to most properties within, I'd say, 5 minutes, really, 5-10 minutes ideally, kind of on the outskirts. So in that time, if you've closed the door on the fire, that will stop it from growing, and prevent damage in the home, really, from the fire.
I think that's really helpful advice, because I've always got very confused about fire extinguishers, and using the wrong sort could actually make the situation worse. And when you're actually in a bit of a panic and something's happening, I think your advice, closing the doors, starving it of oxygen, the worst that could happen is it just burns itself out in that room, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's really useful advice. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad that helps. I mean, 'cause obviously our priority is saving life. Everything else in the home can be replaced. Obviously we've got memories and things like that in there, but the main thing is you can't be replaced, really. So put your own safety above any kind of anything else, really, I'd say.
Can I ask another question about charging phones? We've talked about this in our various computer groups, and I'm conscious you can actually feel it, that it gets warm, doesn't it, if it's charged? And I've never actually left my phone on overnight for that reason. But also, and I think I'm right in saying this, Brian and Ian, it's not a good idea to keep your phone absolutely fully charged. There's a school of thought to say, well, charge it up when you can supervise it and stop actually short of the 100%, because that actually prolongs the battery. So another reason why it's good not just to keep them on for a sustained period, and certainly not overnight. And also, I'm told, use the charger that comes with the phone. This is very confusing because we have so many devices and you've got so different plugs and leads and things that it can be confusing. But the charger that does come with the phone is designed for optimum performance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Yeah. Again, I've personally responded to fires that have been caused by that, by incorrect charges being used, much cheaper charges. So no, that's definitely true. Very good advice. Yeah. Think about a kind of other fire risks in the home. I'm not sure if any of your members use candles or burn incense or anything like that. It's quite common, yeah. Especially in an emergency, if there's a blackout or something like that, a lot of people keep candles in a drawer and that kind of thing. And a lot of this kind of fire safety advice is common sense, but our advice to be, if you are going to light candles or burn incense, again, to not leave it unattended. Don't put them near anything combustible. So quite often, like curtains is quite a classic one, or you can get netting on windows. So just make sure it's not anywhere near anything like that. Sometimes we attend fires that have been caused by little tea lights as well, that aren't in a proper holder. And the heat from the candle, as well as kind of going out and around it goes down as well. So we've had these tea lights placed on things like TVs and things like that. It's then gone on to melt the plastic and cause a fire that way. So if you are using any candles, make sure they're in the proper holders, and that they're away from anything flammable, and they're not left unattended. And same goes with incense sticks as well, if you do use those. Probably cover smoking as well. I'm not sure if any of your members smoke, but if they do, or even it's good to talk about it anyway, in case you have people visiting who may end up smoking kind of in the home or in the garden at your house or anything. The advice with that would just be to make sure they're extinguished fully. So we advise extinguishing them in water, a little cup of water. Not smoking when you're tired or been drinking alcohol, that kind of thing, because quite often people smoke inside on the sofa or something like that. They'll fall asleep, the cigarette will drop and set fire to the sofa. Obviously, furniture is much kind of less flammable than it used to be, but it is still a risk as well. So something to be mindful of, basically. On the topic of open flames. Hopefully this isn't an issue as well. Again, it should be less and less of an issue, but we are aware of people who sometimes heat their homes using kind of open flames. Maybe the gas hob used to be a thing that people used to do. I would hope that everywhere's got central heating now, and this isn't an issue, but just something else to be aware of as well. some people as well, if they do have an open fireplace, they might be tempted to dry clothes in front of the open fireplace as well, which of course we wouldn't recommend, just in case you know, they would fall into the fire, that kind of thing. So you know, a lot of this is common sense, as I say, but you know, in my experience, you know, it's worth mentioning everything, because perhaps that isn't something that someone's thought of, or yeah, just something they should be aware of, really. So
Can I ask about height of smoke alarms for people in wheelchairs?
yes, yeah, great question. I'm seeing if we have one here. No. So yeah, that's a really good question. So smoke alarms should always be placed on the ceiling. Quite often we go to places and they're placed fairly high up, but you know, on the wall at this kind of angle, where they should be flat against the ceiling like this. Yeah, great question about people who you know, might be in a wheelchair and can't reach them. We do, when we come around and do a home fire safety visit, we can supply them with, it is basically just a stick with a little finger on it. So you can use that. However, anything will work really, broomstick, or you know, anything like that, that you can use to reach up to the ceiling. Yeah, will work. But that's a good question. Yeah. And another risk that I was just thinking of, some of your members may have thatched roofs. Possibly, there are some thatched roofs in Exmouth, which can be a risk. Obviously, not so much themselves catching fire, but if a fire were to occur in the property, the thatch is more flammable itself. There are steps that you can do to you know, lower the risk of a thatch fire occurring. If you speak to, my understanding is the way that thatch roofs work is there's kind of a master thatcher for the area who will kind of cover a certain area. So if you speak to the master thatcher about putting up fireboarding underneath the thatch, which will kind of separate and provide a bit more protection for the underside of the thatch. It's something called the Dorset model, if you want to mention that to them. But that's it, really. All the other things that you can do to reduce fire from you know, occurring in the house will affect, you know, the likelihood of a thatch fire occurring as well. The only other thing is, yeah, when a you know, a thatch property also has an open fireplace and a log burner, that normally does, you know, kind of quite greatly increase the risk of a thatch fire occurring as well. So then in which case it's even more important to get your chimney swept more often to prevent that from happening. Another thing you can do as well is you can get an electrician just to come around and check all the electrics in the property. I believe a lot of thatch insurers, home insurers that cover thatch properties, they insist on having an electrical certificate maybe every year or every few years, and also just have your thatch inspected by the master thatcher, make sure that it's you know, kept in good condition and everything. So that's another thing to consider. Okay, we're all happy with that so far, with the main risks of fire. We've covered how to reduce them a little bit as well. Yeah, good.
Yeah, that's been very useful, Jared. Actually, I've got a supplementary question on smoke alarms. Some of us have electrically wired in smoke alarms,
yeah,
but also have a battery, which is necessary, obviously, if you have a power cut. And I found from experience myself, I've been called, I'm part of the Labour Watch, and one of my responsibilities seems to be called out almost an emergency because of the bleeping battery. And the mechanisms for those combined smoke alarms are absolute nightmare. Sometimes you have to twist, sometimes you've got to slide, you poke around. And of course, you've got this incessant bleep, which is keeping the occupant away. I think, but I welcome your advice. What I think is a useful thing for everyone to do, if you've got that sort, is to at least inspect it and see what the mechanism is, so that if you do get the bleeping, it is, and I understand it's a good way of wiring it in, but it does have this battery backup with that warning signal. Would that be your advice? I mean, I'm not sure if those are different, obviously, from the ones that you use, which are battery only, presumably, Jared.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because we go to them fairly often as well. As you say, that they can be, you know, we have to deal with them quite a lot as well. They can be very difficult to get down. That's a very good idea to just have a good look at it. Quite often what you'll find is you'll have to use a flathead screwdriver to insert in the, if you imagine this is the insert kind of on the side there. So smoke alarms are normally in two parts. They'll have the main head and they'll have the back plate, which is attached, that's actually attached to the ceiling. So in order to separate them, it'll normally be, a flathead screwdriver to push in, but I won't lie, they are awkward to get down. It'll either be a twist or it'll be kind of a prying method or sliding method. So yeah, I've got a hand raised, Ian.
Yes,
Yeah.
I find that if a smoke alarm does go off, often because of a bit of cooking smoke, get a towel and waft it to move the air through the smoke alarm, so you get rid of the alarm causing air and put fresh air into it.
Yeah.
Just waft a towel at it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's good advice. If any of the members do have one of our smoke alarms, or if they'd like us to come around and install one, so there's just one button on it. It's the test button, but it's also a silence button as well. So if a smoke alarm does go off for any reason, of course, first off, do double check, make sure that there isn't an actual fire in the property and that you're 100% confident it's only been caused by, like you say, burnt toast or something like that. In which case you can press the test button and it will silence it for 10 minutes. So just kind of help you, so you don't have to stand there and do the towel thing and everything.
That's really good advice. Thank you ever so much. Mine's really sensitive.
Good. Yeah, most alarms should have that. I know for sure that ours do, but yeah, just have a good look at your own smoke alarms and get kind of familiar with them. Yeah, I've got another hand raised, Brian.
Picking up on John's point about the battery and electronic alarms, I've got 3 of those all linked in my hallway with the 3 floors. I know this sounds a bit naive, but I got caught out with that. One solution I discovered was to write down the expiry date on the batteries before you fit them and put it somewhere. But the other thing, which I use now, is when my burglar alarm is checked over for its annual service, my burglar, he's very good at fitting the new batteries. And also those, if I'm right, they may all be like this. Mine went through a period where actually the actual alarm unit had expired, in terms of, and that had to be replaced. So that's another thing just to be aware of. They're not forever, as I discovered when I had them all installed.
Absolutely. No, that's a really good point. Definitely. No, I like the idea of having a little note so you don't have to kind of take them down to have a look and everything. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Just be aware of when the batteries expire or the alarms itself. As I say, the ones we fit have a little date on them. So the ones you have, it's hard to see in the camera, obviously, isn't it? But right there, it's got a date. So this is August 2028. Just be mindful of that. If you do have kind of hardwired smoke alarms, those are kind of the gold standard for smoke alarms, because as Brian said, they are all linked together. So if there's a fire in the downstairs of the property and you're upstairs asleep or something, then you'll know about the fire much sooner. So they're really great. So if you do want to go ahead and do that, and also they're normally fitted by companies as well. So if you do have any problems with them, the company is normally quite good at coming around and kind of resolving any issues you have, kind of electrical problems with them or anything like that. But if they are going off for any reason and you're not sure why, then bottom line is don't hesitate to phone 999. We're happy to come out and just double check that everything's all right, and that's what we're here for, basically. So
Gerard, how would our members go about getting one of these Angel alarms? Do they have to wait until it's their turn for you to visit road by road in Exmouth, or is there another way forward with that?
Yeah, no, good question. So what I was hoping to do at the end of the session was, if your members, the ones who have attended the meeting today, or any other members, would feel comfortable passing on phone numbers, perhaps via yourself or however you feel comfortable, then basically, we've got this home fire safety form that I sent through. So perhaps you know, you might have seen it already, and then we could go through some details, and we'd book in a visit to come around. It'd be just whenever's convenient for yourselves. Yeah, no, we'd be happy to come around to any of your members who feel like they'd benefit. It doesn't even have to be if we want to, or if you want us to install alarms. If you just want us to come around, have a bit more of an in-depth conversation, perhaps we could even take a walk with you around the home and help you identify any fire risks that you might have, and suggestions on how to reduce them. We're happy to do that as well. But during the home fire safety visit, we can fit smoke alarms for free. Depending on kind of the risks in the home, there's other equipment we can offer as well. So we also offer a hearing impaired alarm. So the way these work as well is that the normal smoke alarm looks the same. It goes in the same place on the ceiling, but they're connected via Wi-Fi through the internet to, there's little, it's like a control box which would go next to your bed. Then attached to that is a vibrating pad that would go underneath your pillow. And also the control box has got a very bright light as well. So when the smoke alarms go off, it's all linked up together. The bright light will flash and the pad will vibrate under your pillow. So if you can't hear the smoke alarms, then you'll be able to have the visual aid and the sensory aid of the pad under the pillow. So that's another thing that we can offer free of charge if you require that. As well.
Yeah, you come to Budley as well as Exmouth, presumably.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Budley, Salterton, Woodbury, Lympstone, all those kind of Newton, Poppleford, wherever, all those kind of surrounding areas as well.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a hand raised, Audrey. Sorry, I've only got a amount of screens raised.
Is there any way of knowing when our road is on the list for one of your visits?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a bit kind of ad hoc. So the way that it's done is there's 4 crews here at Exmouth. So they're assigned by colour: red, white, blue, and green. I'm on Green Watch, and the roads of Exmouth have been distributed amongst these 4 teams. So one team has got the surrounding areas like Lympstone and Woodbury, things like that. Ourselves, we've been assigned kind of the Brixington kind of area. And we're just kind of systematically working our way through. So we've done St. John's Road, we've done kind of York Close and going on to Birchwood and Churchill, those kind of things. However, you don't need to wait for us to come round. If you're happy to, just give your phone number to perhaps the U3A secretary or however you want to do it. Then absolutely, we can speak today. If it's convenient, and we can book in a home fire safety visit, and we can come around and do that as soon as possible, basically.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Ian, would you be okay then if people just left you permission to distribute their phone number, email to Gerard? Would that work for you?
Yes,
yes,
that's
so
fine.
if members could do that this morning, if they want to be contacted by the fire service, to just give Ian permission, because then he can send on the list to Gerard.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Marjorie,
yeah, that's okay. I missed that question because I nipped out to get something. So we can contact Ian.
Yes.
What I missed that little bit of conversation.
If you contact Ian, just to give him permission to pass on your details to Gerard.
And then I can get a home visit.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I just ask you one thing, which is not really to do with fire? Carbon monoxide alarms I've got.
Yes.
Right.
2, and I've had them in for years now. I don't even know whether they've run out or what. They just sit there. And do you help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I was going to move on to carbon monoxide alarms as well, because they're very important as well. So with carbon monoxide alarms, we can supply them as well. So if you'd like one of these, then by all means arrange a visit. We can come round. With the ones you already have, I believe the thing is, they're quite often different kind of makes and models and stuff, but there should be a date on them as well, perhaps on the back of them, which should say an expiry date. My experience with carbon monoxide alarms as well is the batteries are normally built in, so you don't normally replace the batteries with carbon monoxide alarms. You replace the whole unit itself.
That's the one I've got. Can you see it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Do you mind just turning it round for the back of it?
Oh, the back.
Yeah, the reverse. Is there a
There's
date?
not really anything on the back.
Is there not? Okay. How long do you reckon you've had it for?
Oh, 5 or 6 years or more.
Yeah. Is on the front there should be a test button and perhaps some lights as well.
It says test, reset, alarm, operate. I daren't touch anything.
Okay.
Truly.
Okay, well, it's perhaps don't do it now, and all the other members hear the test thing, but certainly press that button. That would be the same protocol for the smoke alarms. If you can test, if this goes for anyone, if you have carbon monoxide alarms, you can also test them once a week.
And then it says move to fresh air. Move to fresh air.
Move to fresh air.
Which
Okay.
is difficult if it's fitted at the end near the ceiling.
Yeah, well, ideally, I mean, there should be in fresh air, all the time. Where we recommend putting them is if you have a like a gas boiler, or if you have an open fireplace, because this is where carbon monoxide, say if there's a leak from the boiler, or there's some kind of the fire's not burning quite efficiently enough, and it would release carbon monoxide. This is where you're at more risk of carbon monoxide. And also, they don't have to be on the ceiling, carbon monoxide alarms. So smoke alarms always have to be on the ceiling, because obviously smoke is more buoyant than air and it will rise. However, carbon monoxide, it's about the same, what's the word I'm looking for, density as air. So carbon monoxide will kind of fill the room as opposed to expand. So you can have that. I've got one at home. I have it just on the wall next to the boiler, so it's within easy reaching kind of distance. And again, just test that once a week. There should be some lights on it, I think, but sometimes there's a little green light that will show you.
Little green light's just flashed. I've never noticed that before. I can't see it,
No, that's fine. No, it's understandable. That's all right. So if you press the test button, it should again, all of them will be different, but they should do a kind of a beeping noise just to let you know it's okay. Again, there may be a light on there as well that will say test or something that will flash up to let you know it's just doing a test, and that's it. So in terms of the lifespan of the carbon monoxide alarms, as long as the power supply is okay, which will be indicated by the green light, and as long as when you press the test button they sound off, then that's fine, really. Yeah, that helps a little bit.
Thank you.
I have to apologize. I've only got kind of 5 windows at one time, so I'm trying to cycle through.
No, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, brilliant.
Can I just say something about the carbon monoxide alarm? We have ours next to the boiler. And when we had a boiler inspection not so long ago, the annual inspection, as part of that, they check that we do have a carbon monoxide alarm, and they reminded us that ours will expire in a year or so's time. So perhaps if you get your boiler checked, then you don't realize that is being checked at the same time.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Good. Okay. So basically, I'm kind of flicking through our fire safety in the home booklet just to kind of make sure I've covered everything, which obviously we can supply you with if we carry out a home fire safety visit at your house as well. Some of the other things that I mentioned here as well. So I mentioned about turning things off at night that don't need to be on, and not charging things and stuff like that. The other thing that we can sometimes go to is washing machines and tumble dryers. Especially tumble dryers. So again, our advice with that in mind, dishwashers as well. So dishwashers, washing machines, tumble dryers, ideally have them on during the daytime and not on overnight, because if a fire were to occur, obviously it'd take longer for you to become aware of it. yeah, and we have gone to a few tumble dry fires as well. So advice with that is there's like a lint drawer or something like that, a little filter. So if you can regularly clean out the lint trap, that's normally where fires occur within tumble dryers. You can also as well, if you want to, if you go online, I'm not sure of the web address exactly, but if you Google, if you go onto a search engine and type in white goods checker, then quite often you can put in the serial number for washing machines and tumble dryers and anything like that, and it will just tell you if there's been a recall issued on any of those appliances, or if there's any kind of safety concerns that you need to be aware of, basically. So I'd advise doing that as well.
Am I right in thinking that when you go away, in particular, you should switch the tumble dryer off at the power socket, or would you say you should switch it off after you've used it every time anyway?
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, definitely going away. I mean, just for your own peace of mind, really. Yeah, our advice would be anything that you're not using, if it's not in use, then turn it off the plug to reduce that risk, and also reduce your electric bill as well, which of course we all know is an issue at the minute. So for example, TVs now, even when they're left on standby and they've got the little red light, obviously they all vary with makes and models, but some use up to about a third of the electricity, even when they're just turned off and on standby mode. So by turning them off at the plug socket, you can save quite a lot of electricity there as well, which is beneficial all around, really.
Jared, could I just say that this is Brian. I mentioned about using my burglar alarm as expertise with my smoke alarm.
Yes.
It just occurred to me listening to Sandra, because I have carbon monoxide alarms too.
Excellent.
My boiler is a gas boiler. It is serviced every year, but certainly that's never checked. It's done by a private company. That's not criticising them, but from now on, I will make sure I personally say, could you have a look at my carbon monoxide alarm? So I think that's something, using the experts. They're not going to charge you for that. Well, I shouldn't, well, mine certainly wouldn't, I know, but it's just a thought.
It's interesting, Brian, because I thought that was on the latest checklist for gas boiler service people. Because I've certainly had that within the last 2 or 3 years. That's been routinely asked. But if it's not done, then good to prompt them. That's a good suggestion.
Absolutely. Yeah, good. Okay, if there's any, if everyone's happy with kind of the main risks of fire in the property and how to reduce those risks, if that's the case, then are you happy for me to move on to kind of escape plans and that kind of thing?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I can't see any hands in a minute. Good. Okay, so so again, part of the home fire safety check is just establishing an escape plan, which we've already kind of touched on already, where if there's a fire in the property, closing the door to the room where the fire is, if it's safe to do so, and then getting out of the property, making sure everyone's with you, not going in for anything and calling us out on 999. It is worth as well, if there's more than one of you living in the home, just having a bit of a discussion, or if you're on your own, just having a little thought about, if I were to occur in the kitchen, is the front door the safest way for me to get out of the property, or can I use the conservatory doors or something like this, or if there was a fire in the front hallway, can I get out the back of the property? Just kind of things like this. Just imagine having to get out of the property in different ways. When I talk about kind of escape plans and all this kind of stuff, I'm always kind of mindful. I don't want to frighten anybody, because if you've done everything you can, reducing the risk of fire, then hopefully this should never happen. But this is kind of our role is worst case scenario. So just kind of take a couple of minutes to imagine the worst case scenario and think about how you can kind of get out the property best. Quite often when we ask people about what your escape plan is, they'll say things, "Oh, I'll just jump out the window. That's okay." So our advice would that's the absolute last resort, jumping out of any windows, especially if they're above the ground floor. The best way to get out of the property is the way that you always do, that the front door or the back door, whatever's safest. Obviously, if you're not able to use those means of escape, then the window is an option. However, So this is worst case scenario. So say if it's the middle of the night, you're in your bedroom asleep and the smoke alarms are going off and you don't know what's caused them. So what we'd say to do would be to check the inside of your bedroom door, which hopefully you should have closed when you went to bed. Check the inside door with the back of your hand and check for heat. Okay, so if it's cold, then you can open the door, investigate why the alarms are going off and everything. But if it's hot or quite warm, then maybe you can assume that there's a fire on the other side of the door or somewhere in the property. And in which case, obviously don't open the door. If there is other people in the house with you, try and kind of raise the alarm, make sure that they're aware there's a fire in the property as well. Again, ideally, if you could have everyone, get everyone in the same room, so everyone's together. But yes, so if you are essentially kind of trapped in a room, say it's your bedroom, you may have heard this advice before as well, but what we'd say to do is to put bed sheets or towels or something like that around the cracks of the door, so that'll stop any smoke getting in. Then if you open an external window just to get fresh air into the room, and then you can call fire as well. We tell people to shout fire as opposed to help, because fire is just a bit more specific and people are more likely to react if someone says fire than they are to help, because help could be for a whole number of reasons. Something you can do as a good nighttime routine, so kind of getting into the nighttime routine, you may do already, but have if it's a landline or a mobile phone next to the bed, so you can phone 999 without any kind of delay, kind of get us out the door, get the wheels rolling, so we can get there as soon as possible. And also just so that you don't have to put yourself at any risk in order to do that. So say if people don't have a phone in the bedroom, but they've only got a landline downstairs, they don't have to go into the hallway, go downstairs in the dark, perhaps the power's out, perhaps the hallways are kind of starting to fill up with smoke, and you're putting yourself at risk in order to do that. So if you can have some kind of phone in the bedroom, so you can safely call 999, as soon as possible, basically. We've mentioned already about closing internal doors, so this falls under our nighttime routine as well. So it's basically any internal doors that you can in the property, it's a good idea to close. So especially to the living room, to the kitchen, your bedroom door. So if a fire were to occur overnight, say in the living room, then what that would do, the fire would build up to a certain point, but because the door is closed, it wouldn't have enough oxygen to grow, too rapidly, basically. The cracks in the internal door would let some smoke through, and they would set the smoke alarms off. So you're giving yourself more time to get out the property safely. And if you close the door to your bedroom as well, and that will give you kind of more time for us to arrive and effect a rescue as well. So I started saying about kind of jumping out of windows, which we wouldn't recommend. If you're not already aware, we've got a variety of different ladders that we can use, to effect a rescue from a window very safely. We train in rescues out of windows all the time. So you can be confident that if you are kind of kind of trapped in any sort of room, that we'll be able to get you out safely. When you phone 999 as well, so what will happen is you'll likely be asked which emergency service you want, and then you'll say fire, and then you'll be put through to our Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Control Centre. And then they'll run through a number of questions with you, such as if you know what's on fire, if you know where the fire is, how many people are in the property, that kind of thing. And it's important to stay on the phone to them as well. So if we turn up and you're still on the phone, then and we know that you're in an upstairs bedroom, then we don't have to go in through the front door and kind of search about for you if we know where you already are. So it's that kind of thing, basically. But they are our control staff are very good at talking you through steps that you need to take, and communicating that information back to us in terms of where people might be in the property and what's on fire and stuff like that. So that's advice there. I don't suppose, well, it could be possible if any of our members live in a flat, in kind of, like a block or anything like that. So the advice with that would be to check with, sorry, someone. sorry, I thought I had a question. Yeah, so if you could check with the perhaps the building manager or whoever it is that you normally deal with on a day-to-day basis, and ask what the evacuation procedure is. So typically, it's what we'd call a stay put policy. So if there are individual flats in a building, the idea is that the flats are individual self-contained units. So if a fire is occurring in one flat, it should be contained to that flat for at least an hour, basically. So basically, the message is there that it's safer to remain in your. Obviously, if the fire isn't in your particular flat, then it'd be safer to stay in your flat, where you've got nice fresh air and everything, as opposed to going out into the corridor, which might be full of smoke. There might be firemen in a hurry firefighters trying to go up the stairs with hose and bits of equipment and stuff like that. Yeah. So, but again, check with your check with your building manager, whoever it is you speak to. Oh, so I've just been handed a note by my boss. Is there any date or anything, or just whenever? Excellent. Maybe like EAs in the future. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, okay. Great. Sorry about that. So I've just been handed a note, which will quite nice to see. Coffee and cake at at the station if anyone would be interested. So yes, so we'll organise. We'll liaise with yourselves, but hopefully will be good to organise a date to have people visit the station if people are interested. So we can have a little coffee and cake event. There's a note here, 30 at a time. There's not kind of too many people. But to be honest, you can bring family members and stuff like that. Obviously, children enjoy seeing the fire appliances as well. We've actually just got a brand new one as well. We've got a brand new fire engine which came here this week, so they can open up the lockers and have a look at the equipment on there. We can even do a bit of a demonstration. Throw some ladders up or squirt some water. Kids can even squirt water if they want to as well. So that's something that perhaps moving forward we can set up and in the future. So there we go.
Oh, what a wonderful offer. Thank you. And you do have open days from time to time, don't you, Jared? So it's good to keep an eye on that, which is great to have the chance to just drop in.
Yeah. If any of your members are on social media, so Facebook or Instagram, and they follow, so there's a Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service page, which will normally put up information about open days. Exmouth have a page themselves, so anything like that, we quite often do like a car wash or an open day. But perhaps if there's just one in the surrounding area, I know that if anyone knows where our headquarters is in St George, that's where our headquarters, what we call our urban search and rescue unit. They're kind of a specialist rescue unit. They're based there, and also what used to be Topsham Fire Station has now moved to St George as well. They put on open days probably more regularly than we would. So if you follow the main Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue page, then you can kind of make yourself aware of those basically. Brian, you got a hand up? I think you're still on mute, Brian, I'm afraid.
Brian, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, it's me again. I've got double glazing, and I've also got 3 floors of it, and I've also got the front and back door that are, double glazed type things. One of which has got what's called a padlock on it, so that passers-by can't just open the door and come in.
Right.
However, I try to be really good about this and don't always succeed, but I've got a kind of routine that usually doesn't let me down. I'm worried that something might happen in the night and the front door's locked, the back door's locked, and the key's not sitting in the lock for obvious reasons. And so I try very, very hard to make sure that I take my keys, my front door key at least, back to the bedroom at night so I can get out. But also I'm concerned about if I couldn't get out for the reasons you talked about, then I must be able to open the windows, which generally are locked. They're unlocked by me when I open them, but when I shut them, I lock them up with a key. And that's another thing that I try hard to sort of know where the key is, because there have been times, not associated with fire, but when I haven't been able to locate a key, where in the past, locate the key to the windows to open them. And for obvious reasons, to get out the back door, the front door might be essential for me, but I might need to open the window, not to let you in, but to actually throw the key down to the front door to let somebody get in. And it wouldn't necessarily be for fire emergency. It could be ill health, something that happens to me. Obviously, I'm living on my own, from what you'll gather. So that's just something I was throwing in, really. It's not.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that. That's a really good point. Yeah, I was going to move on to that as part of the nighttime routine, because it's another thing that we come across quite often, as you say, is where to keep keys and everything. So it's kind of a balance between security and kind of safety, really. So the police would tell you not to leave your key in the door, so that perhaps the part of the door could be smashed and then they can get the thing. However, ourselves and the fire service would tell you to keep the key, if not in the door, very, very close to it. So we wouldn't really advise taking it to bed with you even. We'd say to have it near the door, perhaps if you can put a hook on the wall, or perhaps you've got like a table, you can put like a bowl there with the keys in. Reason being, as you absolutely said, if there was a fire in the property, again, worst case scenario, the hallways are kind of full of smoke. You've already kind of battled your way down the stairs through the hallway, and you're in a low position, crawling along to get underneath the smoke layer, and then you can't find the key. You've got to go all the way back upstairs to the bedroom, because it's one of those things, obviously, that I really hope that none of you ever have to kind of experience it, but it's one of those things that you never really know how you're going to react in such an emergency, and you'd like to think, yeah, okay, smoke alarms are going off, I'll grab my key, I'll run downstairs, but in reality that just, it might not happen, and it's completely understandable, because it's an emergency situation. So our advice would be to ideally have them very close to the front door. I'd say like a hook or something like that, hanging up, or something would be good. So you can just grab the key, unlock the door. I mean, personally myself, so my back door used to be a key that you have to use to unlock it. I changed the lock out, so it's a thumb turn, basically. So you don't have to use a key you have to use a key to get in, but not to get out. So that's another thing you can think of. And then in terms of, like you say, people, the right kind of people getting into the property, so emergency services or police or ambulance, but perhaps for ill health. What some people sometimes do is they can have a key safe, which is outside the property on the front door, next to it.
Yes.
And
yes.
then some of you have that. Yeah,
I have that. And the fire people have got the code to open it, to access the key.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly it. So so when we come around and do a home fire safety check, or even you can just phone us up and let us know. It's worth saying as well that any information we collect, in terms of key safe numbers or anything at all, contact numbers, anything like that, it's all it doesn't go any further than the fire service. It's just for our benefit, so we can be as effective as possible when we turn out.
And that's very useful. You say, particularly people on their own, and of course the same principle applies to the fires. The ambulance service can do exactly the same. They all keep a confidential record of that key safe code.
Absolutely. And so what happens when we have a fire is we get a turnout slip. We'll have information if there's any kind of dangers in the house, but it will have that key safe number on there. So that so we can get in, and not to alarm you or be indelicate, but failing that, we do have a large amount of breaking in tools, basically, which we can use, sledgehammers and pry bars and stuff like that. So that a locked door will slow us down a little bit, but not too much, to be honest. If it's an emergency, then not to worry. We'll
that's on the grounds that people are more important than property, aren't they?
We'll replace the lock. Yeah, we've worked quite a lot recently in terms of developing our techniques of gaining entry, because we do a lot of work with the ambulance as well, who they call us out simply to gain entry to a property. That's the only purpose of us being there. So we've experimented with different methods of just removing the barrel of the lock, so the door and the door frame itself isn't damaged. which we're quite successful with now. So that's another good.
I have seen the police use it really is a battering ram, and it really was quite brutal. I think they've enhanced their approach. Julia, you've had your hand up for a moment.
Yes, regarding, I'm the same as Brian. I have everything locked, but I've luckily got keys for every window, so I have them on the windowsill. And regarding my front door, that's the only way that people can get in. I'm really secure at the back. I've never seen anyone try to climb over all these walls. And I have houses either side. I leave my front door key in the thing and pull it out slightly. So a neighbour who has a key, or anybody that has a key to my property can get in, you know, by using the key.
Okay.
Because I have.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a good point you make about having neighbours or relatives who are very close by the property that can also gain access. The only thing I'd say about leaving keys in the door, it obviously depends on different locks. But if you've got a key inserted into the inside of the door, if we were to then somehow obtain a key to get in either by a key safe or a neighbour, then you wouldn't be able to put the key into the outside of the door and open it. It would kind of.
Yes, you can, because I always remember to pull the key out slightly so that.
Right, I see. Okay, that's good. Yeah, as I say, it'll probably vary on different kinds of locks, but just something to be aware of if you do leave the key in there. Just make sure that you definitely still can open it from the outside with a key. Yeah, but no, that's good. It's a really good point. Thank you for that.
Can I ask you about the key, the wall safe? Because I have thought about those seriously, but I've always been dubious as to how, how public it will be seen, and somebody coming on with a sledgehammer or something. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about burglary risks and knocking it off the wall. Have you got any views about how you go about getting one of those safes? Because obviously I'll get one off the internet tonight or tomorrow. But it's the fixing of it, presumably, and the build of it. Is there any kind of recommendations on that kind of thing?
No, I understand your concerns, to be fair, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I like with anything, you'll be able to kind of get different things. I know that they're normally put into the masonry of the building, so they'll be screwed into brick, so hopefully should be put up quite a bit of a fight.
I've had some experience of both with my elderly father and ourselves, and I think the answer, Brian, is that the key is contained in a really thief-proof container. It's like it is literally a safe, so if they knock it off the wall, they can't get into it. But if you open it out, there is a screw, or you can actually get it to the wall, and a builder could do that if you haven't got a drill yourself. So it is quite secure. If you're anxious about it being visible, what you could do, but you have to tell the fire services, is actually put it on a wall around the sides, depending on what your property looks like. So it doesn't necessarily need to be visible. But the downside there, of course, is you've got to tell the emergency services where the key safe is. But it's a simple but very effective way of enabling authorized people to gain access.
And I've got a code. I've got a code that you good people would use to actually access it all.
Yeah.
That's usually how they work. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I suppose, again, ideally the ones that are near the door would be most beneficial for ourselves as emergency service, because we can come over and see it quite often. But I know that you can get hidden key safes as well that are disguised as rocks or bricks or something like that. Again, it's the same kind of thing as John correctly said. You've got the main outside of it, but then you've got a very secure inside where the key is. And again, there's all kinds of various different types of those that you could perhaps hide somewhere in the, near the front of the door. I was just thinking as well, perhaps I don't know if you've heard of a Ring doorbell as well, if you're worried about people tampering with it, with a lock safe. So a Ring doorbell or any other kind of video doorbell, if anyone comes to the door, they automatically turn on basically and start recording, and they can send a video image to your phone. If as another kind of security measure, if you're worried about people kind of tampering with your lock or a key safe or something like that, that could be another thing
But even if you knock mine off the wall, you have to key in your own code to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, if they knocked it off the wall, they wouldn't be able to use it. Because it's, you know, you've got a number that nobody else would know. And it's very handy if you forget your keys yourself, you know. Go out and forget your keys. You haven't got to sort of tell people. You can just go into your key safe. They're very good to have.
Now, everyone, I'm a bit conscious of the time. I'm delighted that Jared hasn't been called away in an emergency, which I thought would be always a possibility. But I'm also conscious of the demands on Jared's time, and people might have to leave shortly. Are there any other key points, Jared, you wanted to raise? You covered an enormous number of issues in a really short time. That's been extremely helpful and very relevant and very valuable for us all. But is there anything else you wanted to cover specifically? It seems pretty comprehensive in what you've done.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm glad that that it's been useful for yourselves. You before the meeting started, you referenced our website as well, which is a really good source of. I don't know if perhaps you could share that with the members of the group. But it's basically dsfire, dsfire.gov.uk, and on there there's a number of tabs at the top. And there's a tab called Safety Advice, and within that you've got links for fire safety in the home, support for carers, parents, and carers of children. There's information about being safe on the road as well, which is another area that I didn't even I've just covered fire safety in the home, but of course we go out to all kinds of emergencies, including what we call road traffic collisions, car crashes. So that's a whole different topic that if you like to arrange a visit, we can discuss how to be a bit more safer on the road as well. Yeah, anything like that basically.
Well, thank you very much. I've just put the link in the chat box. We also had to put it on our Facebook group last night, and we can certainly mention that in our newsletter, Jared. So thank you ever so much for explaining things so clearly and in such a constructive and positive way. And thank you once again for your invitation to visit. My thanks also to everyone who asked questions. Christine, over to you for a few words.
Yes, Gerard, thank you so much. That was really comprehensive, and it's covered a lot of things that's answered the questions that our members had this morning. That's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Really detailed. I think you're absolutely wonderful that you offer coffee and cake at your fire station, because I think we should be providing you with the coffee and cake, to be perfectly honest.
We've always got coffee and cake on a fire station anyway, so if you want to come share it, basically.
Yes, so I think what we need to do is arrange a visit for 30 of us. I think that would be very popular.
Brilliant.
I'd certainly like to take the photographs for that. And I think if our members contact Ian, that will be most useful for us, because I think each one of us has probably been thinking of different things for our own homes that we would like covered. And you've covered a lot of that this morning, but I think a visit by some of your very knowledgeable and experienced people would be a great help to us. So I'd like to extend great thanks to you. And again, thanks to your fire service, for whom we're really grateful for. So thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerard, I'll write up a review for this for our newsletter. Is it okay if I send it to you first? Because I don't want to be giving out the wrong information in it. Is that all right?
Yes, it's fine, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yes, so you mentioned it. Would you be happy then if people did want to pass on their phone numbers to yourself, then you give them to me, and I could contact people. To be fair, we could just talk through some issues over the phone. It doesn't even, if you're not comfortable with us visiting your home, we can just talk through some stuff over the phone. We can visit the property, even if you don't need any equipment. We can just walk around the home with you and help with fire safety, or we can supply equipment, whether it be smoke alarms, hearing impaired alarms, anything like that. So yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think prevention is much better if we can do prevention. That's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Jared. That was wonderful. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Really great. Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you very
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you. And thank you all for staying on a bit longer. I know some of you got to rush off, but that was well worth it. And we're just very pleased that we could have not just a brilliant conversation and delivery, but some great questions and some great clarity on a really important topic. Thanks once again, Jared.